Hey, I just noticed I mistyped the title. First time ever. So, yeah, weird time to do this. And I gotta talk fast because I got some people coming over at 4. Jim Ostrowski with the Liberty Moving Podcast. My great intro. Cue the music. I worked on that project, but I never got the music done. So, who cares? Let's just get right into it. So, I want to talk about the actual title is "Okay Boomer Basher." It came out Badger, through the spell check. So hopefully this will be an interesting topic. It's a little unusual. So basically, there's this line of thought. It's almost part of the culture now to bash the boomers, and not because I'm a boomer, but because I'm peak boomer, born in the peak year of the baby boom. Not because of that, because that's not important, except that I have a perspective on it that's unique. I hate bullshit. So all you people are full of bullshit. All you boomer bashers. You are totally full of shit. And I'm going to explain why. Now, it's a big topic. I'm not an expert on religion and culture and the family and all that other stuff. But my focus is on politics and economics. Politics and economics. So let's talk a little bit about, and if you want all the background for this, see my book, Progressivism, a Primer. The thing about this podcast, in contradistinction to a lot of other podcasts, except Tom Woods and a couple people who's also written many books. I've usually written a book about the topic of the podcast. So you see my book, Progressivism, a Primer on the idea of destroying America. You'll get all the background on this. So the ruling ideology of the United States is small p progressivism. It's confusing because it comes out of the capital P progressive movement that we all learned about in school, although we were taught it was good and in truth it was bad. But that capital P progressive movement had embedded in it a small p progressive concept of, basically the government's going to solve all your problems. I'm not going to get into the great details of it. So that's been the ruling ideology of the country. You see where I'm going with this? You see how badly I'm going to bash the boomer bashers? I'm just going to kick their fucking asses. And they deserve it because they're stupid. It took a couple decades for this idea to percolate through American society because obviously you don't just elect a president and then start putting into policy. But they did elect Wilson in 2012, not 1912. And he comes in 13, and he starts to install his policies, like, without any hesitation. You got the Fed, you got the income tax, you got World War II, not right away, but World War II eventually. You've got the war on drugs. Oh, Wilson started the war on drugs. I thought Richard Nixon started the war on drugs because I'm stupid. Boy, my blood is up today. I've had no alcohol, by the way, so it's just pure hostility today. No booze. So, like, who elects? And really, everything that has happened since has just been a reinforcement and a growth of the progressive state of America. The New Deal added a bunch of new shit. LBJ added a bunch of new shit. And a couple presidents since LBJ added a little tidbit here and a little tidbit there, but nothing of the basic model changed. So Woodrow Wilson was elected in 2012, right? So I think you had to be 21 to vote. So the youngest person who could have voted for, I don't want to do the math, the youngest person who could have voted for Woodrow Wilson was born in 1891. And So you're telling me boomers are responsible for the country's fucked. There's no question about that. We can all agree on that. The only question is it the boomers responsible? It's just such bullshit. I should just stop. I just proved it's bullshit. The progressive era started in 1912. The first boomer was born in 1946. Jesus Christ, this is so stupid. So, I don't know what else I have a lot more to say. So, the boomers are blamed for, when you listen to the critics of the boomers, it's all very vague, and the whole notion of blaming an entire group for like some set of policies and the consequences of those policies, they're not even close to being able to prove it. I mean, if you look at my recent book, The Two Big Lies of the Gun Control Movement, there's a lot going on in that book, and one of the things that's going on is a critique of democracy. And obviously, well, not obviously, I point out that your one single vote in a democracy doesn't mean jack shit. So, like, I was a boomer. I had one single vote. I never voted for anybody who got elected to the presidency. I can tell you exactly who I voted for. It doesn't matter, really. I voted against everybody who won, and I voted against everybody who came in second place. And this whole notion of blaming a collective group is kind of silly. I suppose you could look at a group and say, well, the individuals in that group kind of did stupid stuff and the combined effect, but they haven't made that case. So LBJ is really the triumvirate of progressive presidents is obviously Wilson, FDR, and LBJ. Others made also other negative contributions. But LBJ, hello folks, he was elected in 1964. Like, I saw Kennedy shot the year before. I was 5. And I'm peak boomer, born in 1957. So let's talk about, I got a little cheat sheet today. I normally do not. Let's talk about who the boomers and the other generations voted for. So the boomers' votes have been somewhat equally distributed between the Democrats and Republicans. So Carter, they voted for Carter in 76. I did not. They voted for Reagan. They voted for Reagan again in 84. I did not. They voted for Bush 1. A lot of these were fairly narrow, though. I don't have that demarcated, but some of these. So Clinton in, Bush in 88. Clinton in 92. It's a three-way race, and I think he won the boomer vote. It's not super clear. Clinton again. No. So keep in mind, a couple months ago, I did a rating, or maybe it was a post. I think it was a post. I might have done a podcast. I don't remember. I ranked all the presidents since like Truman, and Carter. I know a lot of people hate Carter on the right. He wasn't as bad as you think. And I didn't like Carter at the time, but Lou Rockwell has a little bit of revisionism on Carter. Not a terrible president, not great, but not terrible. Reagan was okay. I'm not a big fan of Reagan like some of the conservatives are, but he wasn't a terrible president relative to the other presidents. Bush 1, not very good, but not the worst. He only served one term. Clinton, now, I'm a libertarian. I don't think Clinton was that bad. He was actually a pretty centrist Democrat. Did I like him? No. Is he full of bullshit? Yeah. Has he had all these scandals? Yeah, of course. But his actual policies weren't that terrible. Okay, so the boomers did vote for Bush 2 twice, and he sucked. But again, you're talking about like early 2000s, and American policy in every area is firmly ensconced. We have this welfare, warfare, interventionist state. It's sort of on autopilot, folks. Now, then they voted for Obama, which, Obama was a very bad president, I admit that. But again, what what major policy trajectory did Obama change? He added on to the socialized medicine that was created much earlier by LBJ and the generations before the boomers. They voted for Romney. He lost. Not a very good candidate, but he lost. And here's the thing, which I think is pretty interesting. So apparently the boomers voted for Trump 2 or 3 times, although it's not clear to get data on Trump versus Biden. So, but in my opinion, and I'm only more than willing to criticize Trump. In fact, I've had people, I'm leaving the site because you criticize Trump. That's fine. That's fine. Nobody told you to come in the first place. But Trump is really, I think, from a libertarian point of view, from any point of view, one of the better presidents. He's got some flaws. His first term had some flaws, but and his second term has some flaws too. But when you compare Trump to like LBJ, Bush 2, Obama, and Biden, of course, was absolutely horrendous. Trump's a better president, not as bad as those people, given the fact that there was some of the older boomers voted for Biden in 4 years ago. So this is a pretty mixed vote by the boomers. There weren't a lot of major changes in that time. Each of them sort of tinkered around with the basic model of the progressive state. Big government intervening in the economy, big government violating your civil liberties, big government intervening in foreign countries. This was all largely set before any of these people were elected, quite frankly. Now, let's talk about these great generations that came after us and that are supposedly so fantastic. Let's see who they voted for. This is going to be fun. So Generation X, that's actually my wife's generation, after the boomers, they voted for Obama, who was an absolutely horrible president, that the boomers voted for him once, close, voted against him the second time. They voted for Hillary, who would have been absolutely awful. And they voted for Biden, who Biden is definitely got to be ranked in the easy top 10 worst presidents. But something about Biden that's unique in the sense that I think Biden was the first president who really pursued policies that were intended to destroy the country because he didn't like the country. And that's my opinion. That'll be the subject for a different podcast. Now, I will say Generation X redeemed themselves to a certain extent by shifting away from... Now, the Democratic... So, Generation X votes Democrat 3 times. The Democratic Party is kind of the default governing party, the default party of government. The Republican Party is this sort of useless fraud scheme that pretends to be an opposition party, but is not. I draw a distinction between the Republican Party and Trump. If you follow my work, I think that MAGA is actually a different political party. So Generation X finally redeems themselves from a certain point of view, which is my point of view, and votes for Trump. So let's talk about the millennials. They come after I finally figured out who these generations are. Let's talk about the millennials. They come after, I'm actually going to turn around because I parked my car today, so I'm actually not totally on foot. Going to get back to my car. So, the millennials, hold on, I got to straighten out the phone a little bit. No signal interruptions today. I feel great about that. I'm going to have a big wrap up at the end, by the way, after this little data discussion. So, the millennials, they voted for Obama, who was horrible. They voted for Hillary, who was horrible. They voted for Biden, who was horrible. And they voted for Harris, who would have been horrible and was a horrible candidate and was a horrible vice president and everything else she's ever done in her political life. I don't know about her private life. She's a good stepmom, I guess. And then finally, Gen Z, that's my kids' generation. So they have had 3 presidential elections, and they voted for Hillary. I wrote a book about how Hillary's a war criminal, so you know I don't really care for her. They voted for Biden, the president who intentionally did shit to fuck the country and destroy it. It's like, really? You voted for Biden? Shut the fuck up about politics forever, folks. Unless you didn't vote for them. Unless you're Gen Z, you didn't vote for them, fine. You're off the fucking hook, obviously. It goes without saying. And then they voted for Harris, who basically, went along with Biden's ridiculous policies, terrible policy, terrible on the economy, terrible on civil liberties. The fucking lockdown, making kids wear masks, all these foreign wars in Gaza and Ukraine and elsewhere. So let's sum up what we've talked about so far. The boomers have had voting power in recent decades, particularly I think from 1984 through, I don't know, maybe 2020. But the basic American regime was set in 1913. It was added on to by FDR, and LBJ cinched the deal, and the boomers had no impact on any of that, obviously, if you take out a calculator. So the notion of blaming the boomers for the decline of America or the obvious problems we have is total fucking bullshit. So stop doing it. I order you to stop being so stupid. Now, let's talk. So what's wrong with what? Basically, so blaming the boomers is just a classic form of scapegoating. Scapegoating is a powerful force in human affairs. We've seen it throughout history. So what's the problem with scapegoating? Well, the problems are fairly obvious. If you scapegoat the boomers, you're missing the true villain, which I outlined in my book. It's the the ideology progressivism, added to leftism comes in 2014. I won't explain why it comes in. It'll be one of my future books. So it's the ideology that is the main problem. It is I've said before, politics is determined by 3 things. Hope I can remember them. Ideology, force, and I mean brute force, guns and bombs, and material self-interest. So if you don't like the regime, if you don't like the economy, if you think there's not enough jobs, or I'm paying in this Social Security and the boomers are taking all the money, that's FDR's idea. Then blame one of those 3 factors, but ideology is the main factor. I'm not going to go into that now. So that's the problem with scapegoating the boomers, that you're missing the true villain and you're letting the true villain off the hook, because it's really stupid to do that. Stop doing it. So the other problem with blaming the boomers, since the boomers did not particularly cause the current problems of America, there's no solution embedded in blaming them. Okay, we're blaming the boomers. Okay, well, what are you going to do now? Kill the boomers? Let's kill the boomers. I mean, it's a dead end. It's a fucking dead end. So, also, when these younger generations, and some boomers too, blame the boomers, what's really going on here? You're blaming somebody else for your problems. I admit that there's real problems when you don't live in a society where you have liberty and the government steals or destroys 80% of your wealth. I mean, it's a problem. But you still have choices. You can still get up in the morning. You can vote with your feet. There's a lot of things you can do. You can, work around the system. So really, blaming the boomers is an obvious attempt to escape personal responsibility for your life. It's so obvious, it's almost not even worth talking about. So let me wrap up and say this, so the boomers didn't change the trajectory of the country, which was already well ensconced and structural for decades before they were born. My grandparents didn't even vote for progressivism. They weren't old enough. So the boomers are not responsible for the mess. They're not responsible for the regime, but they are responsible for not changing the regime that was handed down to them. They are, because they were a relatively wealthy generation. They were relatively well educated. They smoked too much pot. They were lazy and spoiled, but they had the basic wherewithal to make the changes. And guess what? They didn't. However, there is a thing called the modern libertarian movement, which was founded in 1971, but really got going more in the late 70s and in the 80s, when guess what? There was a lot of boomers of age and active in politics, including myself. And the boomers do get credit for starting the libertarian movement. It was started by older people, greatest generation and the silent generation, people like Rothbard. But the boomers were there. I remember a guy named Don Ernsberger, classic boomer, is about 10 years older than me. He founded the Society for Individual Liberty. Those people split off from the conservative group and really formed the movement in 71. Dave Nolan, I'm not sure if Dave was a boomer, but my point is there were some older folks in the movement that founded it, the 10 people in Murray Rothbard's living room. But there was a lot of boomers. David Bowes and Ed Crane were boomers, I believe, from the Cato Institute. And I had some differences with them later, but in the early days, they were essential to building the movement. So the boomers tried. We didn't get enough support for this libertarian alternative to the progressive state of America. So one more, I was going to say one more thing, if I can remember it. Maybe I can't. So, yeah, I want to say one more thing. To my fellow boomers, yeah, the country has declined on your watch. You're being improperly blamed for creating all these problems as if nobody else contributed to them. But you were there, and you know, you're older now, and you do have some resources. And I'm going to make a personal plea from, peak boomer Jim Ostrowski, born December 11th, 1957, the peak year of the baby boom. I have spent my entire adult life laboring for liberty in the liberty movement. We need your help. We need your help. The ideologies that most boomers have adopted, which are leftism, it's bullshit. It's just envy of people who you perceive as better than you. Grow up. Stop being a fucking leftist. It's just a way to sublimate your hate into a political ideology. Bullshit. It's bullshit. Progressivism is dumb. Read my book. Government doesn't solve any fucking problems. Government doesn't have the competence to solve any of the problems it's supposed to solve or to accomplish any of the goals it's supposed to solve. Or achieve, I should say. What are the other ideologies? Conservatism? Conservatism isn't an ideology. Conservatism is the absence of an ideology. The right is always reacting to the left. You need a coherent ideology to defeat the left. And that coherent ideology is libertarianism. There's another ideology among the boomers, which is the absence of an ideology, which is this, I'm going to vote for whoever promises to give me the most money. And that's just fucking wrong. So the boomers are not responsible for the regime. We're not primarily or exclusively responsible for the problems of America. The regime was installed by the older generations and has been, and the worst proponents of the regime have been endorsed and supported by the three generations that followed the boomers. But it's not too late to get involved, boomers. So I'm challenging you. I'm calling you out. Good faith. Join the libertarian movement. All the other fucking movements have failed. Every single one of them. So, okay, boomer. Over and out.